When I started this video, I saw that Billie Eilish's debut album, When We All Fall Asleep, Where Do We Go, was released all the way back in March 2019, over 4 years ago. Which is kind of terrifying, because I could have sworn that it came out like a week ago. But since it's now getting ever closer to the 5-year mark, I thought I'd take a look at my favourite song off the record to see why it won pretty much all the awards in about 2020. When I decided to make this video, I'd not listened to the song in a while, and I imagined that I'd find all sorts of little complexities, but instead I found a surprisingly simple piece of music without any of the music theory quirks that I talk about a lot on this channel. The song is entirely diatonic, features little rhythmic complexity, and doesn't feature any particularly virtuosic or otherwise noteworthy individual performances. The other main thing I noticed about this song is that it lifts quite a lot from its inspiration, far more than most songs. But if you watch any live video of Billie performing a song, the audience will be in floods of tears, and I personally think it's great. So what about the song gives it this level of emotional resonance? Though she's obviously still super popular, Billie Eilish's popularity in around 2019 and 2020 was basically unchallenged, culminating in her being the first person since 1981 to take all of the big 4 categories at the Grammys of Best New Artist, Song of the Year, Record of the Year, and Album of the Year, and the album was just huge at the time. Though the song itself only charted at number 53 on the Billboard Hot 100, the album would chart extremely highly, reaching number 1 in all of these countries, and would even top the year-end charts in Australia, Iceland, Latvia, New Zealand, Norway, Sweden, and the USA. In an interview the week before the release of the album, Billie Eilish said that I Love You was the song that she was most excited to release, and had this to say about the writing process.
I don't know. That song, I think when me and Finneas can't even believe we wrote that song. That song just
exorcism.
shot itself out of me and Finneas. We just were, I can't even tell you. That song was
The song opens with a 4-1 progression, alternating between F major 7 sharp 11 and C major 7, creating a droning ostinato of the B and the E. Played on an acoustic guitar, this B and E are played on open strings, which makes them sound kind of brighter, more trebly, since they can vibrate more freely, therefore allowing the ostinato to stick out more clearly in the mix. The fact these notes are played on open strings also allows for them to continue to resonate after the chords have changed. Billie made a playlist of songs that inspired her in the making of I Love You, and most of these are the same kind of sad acoustic song that I Love You is, like the Bridges, Stevens, The Rye, and one of the Bon Iver ones. But the influence of Stay by Post Malone is super clear here in the chords and the voicings, with the same chord progression played in a similar style using near identical voicings in both songs.
Let all that you know is all that you are.
It wouldn't even surprise me if I Love You even started its life as a jam over or interpolation of Stay. Moving back to I Love You, whilst this opening section, and well, the whole song, is completely diatonic, quite stark dissonances are laid very bare in this section. The tritone between the F and the B, as well as the major 7th between the C and the B, are left pretty exposed, creating a lot of tension. These are 2 of the most dissonant intervals that they are, and they're laid really exposed here, creating a really nice tension in the song. The alternating crotchet 2 semiquavers pattern in the guitar is something that largely remains constant throughout the whole song, providing a solid foundation for other layers to evolve on top of. If you're enjoying this video so far, please feel free to leave a like and subscribe, and best of all leave a comment, because I always love hearing what you guys have to say about the music I talk about in these videos. Billie's vocal is the second thing to enter, highlighting the sharp 11 of the F chord before resolving to the 3rd. The first thing that a listener notices about this is how gentle her voice is, possessing an almost ASMR-like quality, owing to her singing very close to the microphone.
Crying isn't like you.
The song has thus far been largely heavy on its high end, with only the low guitar strings providing any bass, until Finneas' backing vocals enter, doubling the lead vocals in octaves. Another song, Alone Part 3 by XXXTentacion, is really reminiscent of this verse melody and instrumentation, likely an intentional homage by Billie to her recently passed friend.
Can't seem to find someone's shoulder.
The texture begins to thicken here with the introduction of some low synths or strings, and another instrument that at first is a little harder to discern. I initially thought it was some kind of electric piano, but in an interview, Finneas revealed that it was actually the flight attendant call button on an airplane pitch shifted around, something that becomes quite relevant in a minute. Billie then sings a descending sequence of 4 descending quavers to bring us into the pre-chorus. The pre-chorus sees Billie and Finneas ascend together up an A minor scale, first over an F chord and then over a G chord. These chords, as with the chords earlier, only change every 4 bars, a pretty slow harmonic rhythm. The whole pre-chorus sees the song building, with the dynamics increasing, more synths or strings coming into the song, but largely dropping back down as soon as the refrain of the song is heard.
You didn't mean to say I love you.
We do get some ever so slight deviations from the guitar's rhythm here, with some constant quavers rather than the alternating pattern, but largely it stays the same in the guitar. Some people have pointed out that the song here is quite reminiscent of Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah, and by the way, I have a 2-part little series on Leonard Cohen if you're interested, which I'll link in the description. Laura Snapes in The Guardian called the comparison suspicious, and it's not hard to see why somebody would come to this conclusion. The pre-choruses of both I Love You and Hallelujah are rhythmically, melodically, and harmonically very similar. Both, fundamentally, are diatonic ascending A minor scales, alternating between short and long notes, resolving to A minor at the end of the phrase. The middle 2 bars of the sections are by far the most similar, and even if you can't read sheet music, you can see how identical these sections look.
Cut your hair and from your lips she
You were trying to make me laugh and nothing else.
They both target the C and D, pulling towards the D, whilst the chords change from F to G. They even both use the word "and" on the last quaver of the bar. But these sections are not identical. The instrumentation's different, the melody's sung in a different octave, the chord progression is more basic in the Billie Eilish song, the rhythm is slightly different, it resolves to a different note, it's played at a much faster tempo, and they're in different time signatures. So I'm hesitant to call it wholesale lifting, because it is quite a simple melody, just ascending up a scale. But with how ubiquitous of a song Hallelujah is, and how similar everything that is similar is, it's certainly pretty heavily inspired by Hallelujah. Remember that flight attendant call button I mentioned earlier? Well, it comes back here in the second verse, taking over the main riff from the guitar, whilst the song essentially moves onto a plane. Billie and Finneas have talked about this second verse being about sitting on the tarmac, waiting for a plane to take off. Billie sings on her own here about being awake on an overnight flight, whilst the sound of a flight attendant speaking can be heard in the background. It's important to pay attention to where Billie sings on her own, compared to where she is singing with Finneas, since it's generally a solo voice heard in the segments where she's trying to emphasise a feeling of loneliness. As Finneas returns to double the vocals, we get some piano as well as some more low strings, building the song further, but it largely does stay the same throughout the next verse and pre-chorus. What we do get here, and it's been heard a little bit before, but not constantly, is a really deep sub-bass, giving the song a powerful low end that stands in contrast with the relatively treble-heavy mix at the start of the song. After the second pre-chorus, the refrain is heard again, but with more powerful backing, the strings and piano playing some small melodies very quietly in the mix.
I love you.
The only other section there really is to talk about is the 8-bar bridge. It's one of the only sections where the vocals are actually harmonised, not just in octaves, with Billie's voice being doubled.
The smile that you gave me even when you felt like dying.
The chords change here too, going from D minor to G to F major 7, a different progression than anywhere else in the song, accompanied by strings and constant quavers on the guitar. There's another pre-chorus and then the song ends on a repetition of the titular refrain, except with sparser instrumentation, and that's pretty much it. It's a really, really simple song with some clever production decisions, but one that works really well resting on this simplicity. It's also a song that wears its influences proudly on its sleeve, not necessarily a bad thing, even if it does veer a little closer to direct lifting than most songs that do this. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed, as I said, please do feel free to subscribe, leave a like, and leave a comment, and check out some of my other videos.